Hulk Hogan's leg drop, the Stone Cold Stunner, whatever the hell Byron Saxton used to do in NXT. A wrestler's finishing move is a key part not just of their in-ring moveset, but of their personality and character as a whole. So imagine the humiliation when the person they're squaring off against not only uses their own move against them, but wins a match with it. Stealing finishers is as common in wrestling as headlocks and scathing podcast appearances. But getting the win with someone else's big move? That's a whole different kettle of insult. I'm Tom Campbell from Cultaholic Wrestling, stealing a voiceover from Adam Pacitti, and these are 10 times a wrestler won with their opponent's finisher. Join us. Number 10, Johnny Gargano beats Tomaso Ciampa, NXT 2020. Sorry to be the one to remind you of this, but Johnny Gargano and Tomaso Ciampa's final NXT match was the much derided One Final Beat cinematic encounter from 2020. It's all right. Please take your time to process this. After their story had already finished at TakeOver New Orleans and again at TakeOver Brooklyn 4, the former DIY went to war again, this time in front of a pandemic-sized crowd. AKA nobody. After what felt like several days of overly melodramatic action, it looked like the Black Heart had victory in sight when Gargano's wife, Candice LeRae, planted her husband with a kick to the knackers. But wait, now she's kicked Ciampa, and Johnny was wearing a cup this whole time. What? Following this spouse-based double cross, Gargano put his fiercest rival away with his own move, the fairy tale ending. Just in case that wasn't enough, poor Tomaso took this move directly onto exposed boards in the ring. Considering this was NXT in 2020, I'm a tad surprised he didn't kick at it too. Such symbolism would have been way more impactful had fans not just sat through a bloated, self-indulgent pre-taped short film immediately beforehand. Number 9, Conan beats Disco Inferno, Spring Stampede 1999. Remember all those great feuds from the glory days of WCW? Sting versus the NWO, Diamond Dallas Page versus Randy Savage, Conan versus Disco Inferno. Wait a second, how do we get here? For those who don't remember, which is probably most of you, Conan and Disco had beef over the former's song, Bow Wow Wow, including a segment where Disco proved he was the whitest man on earth by rapping over the top of it. This led to a match at Spring Stampede, and, well, it was a match between Disco Inferno and Conan. There's not really much more I could say about it, to be honest. The most interesting part of this incredibly average bout is that K-Dog won it using Disco's finishing move, the Chartbuster, aka the Stone Cold Stunner. Considering that finisher stealing is usually reserved for high-profile blood feuds, it's strange that an instance of it occurred in the 4th match of the card on a WCW show in 1999. Saying that, this was a WCW show in 1999. I doubt anyone backstage knew this was the finish, and if they did, I really doubt they cared. Number 8, Christopher Daniels beats AJ Styles. Final Resolution 2012. Whilst Conan and Disco's feud certainly did not define WCW, one of the pairings that helped put TNA on the map was Christopher Daniels and AJ Styles. The Phenomenal One and the Fallen Angel are best friends in real life, which might be why they've been able to bring out the best in each other in the world of kayfabe. They fought in matches against each other countless times for Jeff Jarrett's promotion, their final one-on-one encounter for the company being at Final Resolution in 2012. This match was branded One Final Time. Wow, a wrestling stipulation that was actually honored. I never thought I'd see the day. After over 20 minutes of typically great work from these two, Daniels countered a rope-assisted Styles clash to knock AJ for 6. Then, in a move no one saw coming, he hit his own Styles clash on the man it was named after, pinning the future WWE champion in decisive fashion. Now that is how you end a years-long rivalry in a satisfying manner. Not naming any names. Johnny Gargano, Tomaso Ciampa. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat there. Number 7, Logan Paul beats The Miz, SummerSlam 2022. Ah, Logan Paul. Remember when we all thought he wouldn't last a week in WWE? And now he's United States champion. good times. Before he won gold in the E, the YouTuber's debut singles match took place at SummerSlam 2022, where he faced off against storyline mentor The Miz. Logan and Miz, aka the Cock and Cock Connection, had initially teamed up to defeat the Mysterios at WrestleMania 38. Once Miz turned on his viral friend, this encounter at the biggest party of the summer was well and truly on. As this was only Paul's second WWE match, he hadn't had time to establish his own moves. Most of the things he did in the Mania match were borrowed from other people. So when the time came for his first solo outing, he once again reached into another wrestler's bag of tricks. After overcoming interference from Maurice and Ciampa, remember that partnership? Logan sealed the A-listers' defeat with his very own skull-crushing finale. This was enough to put Miz down and give Logan a big dub. Weirdly, Paul now uses Hangman Page's buckshot lariat in his arsenal. Does that mean he's going to be all elite soon? Nah, probably not. Number 6. Drew McIntyre beats Randy Orton. Clash of Champions 2020. One of Drew McIntyre's biggest programs during his first run as WWE Champion was with Randy Orton, as the two faced off for the title on 3 separate pay-per-views in the second half of 2020. At least, I think it was 3. Time didn't really exist in its true form in 2020, so it could have been 1, it could have been 14. The middle part of this supposed trilogy was at Clash of Champions, and was fought under the rules that the winner had to place their opponent in the back of an ambulance to win. Now, this was during Randy's latest bout of ledger killer-itis. So all the old-timers that he'd assaulted in the weeks prior turned up to aid Drew McIntyre in his defense. Most of them are now in AEW, weirdly enough. I mean, fair play to Tony Khan for setting up a sports entertainment retirement home. What a guy. To put a full stop on this beating, McIntyre hit Orton with his own signature punt kick whilst he was hanging out of the back of the vehicle. This allowed the champ to close the doors and retain, whilst Ric Flair happily drove the ambulance away. As it turns out, this wasn't the first time that the Scotsman had used a Legends move to finish them off. Number 5, Drew McIntyre beats Kurt Angle, Raw 2018. 2 years before his tussle with Orton, McIntyre squared off against another third of the WrestleMania 22 World Heavyweight Championship match when he fought Kurt Angle on the November 5th, 2018 episode of Raw. This was towards the tail end of Angle's in-ring career, when he was looking more than a little worse for wear. But there was still something he could give to his younger opponent, a submission win over a WWE Hall of Famer. After a really good match, perhaps the last great encounter of Angle's career, the Scottish psychopath hit his opponent with an Angle slam before locking in the dreaded ankle lock, grapevine and all. After what felt like an eternity of resisting the move, the Olympic gold medalist reluctantly tapped out. This was a statement that Drew was now one to watch, and that Kurt was winding down his in-ring days. It was a really special moment, certainly a damn sight better than his actual retirement match against Baron Corbin at WrestleMania. Bonus fact, Brock Lesnar also made Angle tap to the ankle lock in their Iron Man match on SmackDown. How about that? Number 4, Edge beats Seth Rollins, Crown Jewel 2021. After years of their Saudi Arabia shows being the absolute worst, WWE finally decided to put on a good one for a change. As well as a great women's triple threat and Xavier Woods winning King of the Ring, Crown Jewel 2021 also played host to one of the best Hell in a Cell matches in years between heated rivals Edge and Seth Rollins. These two already had 2 brilliant matches, and their third one did not disappoint. They threw everything at each other in the name of our entertainment before the rated R superstar took his opponent's finisher to the extreme. Having brutalized Seth with a spanner-assisted crossface, Edge further twisted the knife by placing a chair under Rollins' head and crushing his skull onto it with a stomp. Edge was the victor in this almighty struggle, but the real winners were the fans and the doctors who were about to reap the benefits of some hefty medical bills. A barbaric way to end an ultra-heated feud. The ultimate opportunist's decision to go to such extreme lengths certainly felt apropos. Number 3, Seth Rollins beats Triple H, WrestleMania 33. It's only fair that Rollins got beaten by his own move in Saudi Arabia, as just a few years earlier, he'd inflicted the same fate on someone else. A big-time bout between the Visionary and Triple H had been building for years, ever since the game took a young Tyler Black under his wing in NXT. They also had the Shield Evolution rivalry and their days in the Authority to draw on, as well as trips costing Rollins the Universal Championship in 2016. This all came to a head at WrestleMania 33 in a match that was 25 minutes without entrances and about 3 hours with them. This mini drama reached its crescendo when the King of Kings accidentally knocked his Queen of Queens, Stephanie McMahon, through a table at ringside before scoring the pinfall off the most famous move in all of wrestling, the pedigree. Rollins had been using the pedigree for some time, but this felt like a real passing of the torch moment. Hey, maybe Hunter will pass him his world-famous shovel next. Number 2, Chris Jericho beats The Rock, Vengeance 2001. Now, by this point, our channel has made as many jokes about how often Chris Jericho mentions that he beat Stone Cold and The Rock in the same night as times he's actually told the story, so you can come up with your own punchlines here. Before Y2J overcame Austin to be crowned the first ever undisputed champion, he managed to get past WCW champion The Rock, who he'd been feuding with for the past couple of months. It looked as though the Great One was going to score the win until Vince McMahon wandered down to ringside to stop the referee from counting the pin. This led to the Great One going after the chairman, only to walk right into a low blow Jericho. As if this wasn't enough, the Ayatollah of Rock and Roller then stole The Rock's own bottom, hitting him with the signature slam to win the match and the big gold belt. This was partly done to further turn Jericho heel off the back of such a devious act, but I'd like to think it was so he didn't have to use that really terrible finisher he had at the time. What was it? The breakdown. God, that thing sucked a big, fat, throbbing, veiny number 1. Shawn Michaels beats Bret Hart, Survivor Series 1997. All right, I'm sorry. I know you're all sick of hearing about the Montreal Screwjob. I know, but come on. This is a list about stolen finishers that ended matches. There is no example of that more famous than the time Shawn Michaels decided to practice his sharpshooter in front of an arena full of Canucks. You all know how this one goes. Michaels applies the move to Bret Hart for what the Hitman thinks is going to lead to a near fall. Then, to the shock of everyone, / a few people, depending on who you believe, Earl Hebner rings the bell. Officially, Hart cried uncle while locked in his own hold. Unofficially, he just been screwed. Now, finding examples of wrestlers beating opponents with their own moves was pretty tricky, and maybe this night is to blame. Perhaps promoters have been so scared of summoning images of Montreal that they've largely avoided the tactic, instead of having most finisher thefts result in a 2 count. Whatever the reason, Survivor Series 1997 remains the most infamous example of this story beat, and unless R-Truth wins the Universal Championship by pinning Roman Reigns with a spear, that's not going to change anytime soon.